The ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz are some of the most iconic objects in Hollywood history. And in the summer of 2005, a pair was stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in the small town of Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
All she said was, "They're gone. They're gone."
Welcome to No Place Like Home, a documentary podcast series that investigates the mysterious heist of the ruby slippers. Please listen and follow No Place Like Home, a presentation of C13 Originals, a Cadence 13 studio, available now on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Radio 610 presents Clint Sterner and the Show. Clint Sterner's Football at 4.
That's right. Clint Sterner is out today. Wade Smith is in, 12-year NFL vet, former Pro Bowler, is with us. And for the first time in a long time, the General is live and in color here in studio. John McClain, how you doing today?
I'm great. I've been coming in the studio while you're gallivanting around the country.
Yeah, actually, I had John in studio like a week ago.
Okay, well, it's the first time I've seen
you. Cutting more commercials. You make me feel so bad. I'm not coming in here anymore, Ron, when you're in here. You just make me feel lazy and terrible and old and pathetic.
Well, you're not any of those things.
Well, I am, and I look at you, and I'm so happy for you. I hear your commercials all the time. 113 this week. Man, oh, man.
Game changed.
So happy for you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I am. Before we jump into a lot of the things, we had talked to Wade about this. Wade, he played for Greg Knapp. Just getting your thoughts. A sad situation. Greg Knapp was currently coaching as an assistant with the Jets, but formerly an offensive assistant with the Texans. What are your memories and thoughts about Greg Knapp?
Greg was here in 2010, 2011, the Napper. Everybody called it Napper. Everybody liked Greg Knapp. And that's another reason people are so broken up. He coached a lot of places, so he had a lot of friends and fans around the NFL. But the fact that he was such a good guy, always a positive attitude. And in 2011, when the Texans won their first division title and went to the playoffs for the first time, he was kind of an unsung hero for T.J. Yates, rookie quarterback, third team, thrust into the lineup when the two matched. Schaub and Leinart got hurt, and Greg coached him. Of course, Gary Kubiak coached him too, but Greg did a great job. T.J. threw the touchdown pass that beat Cincinnati, clinched the division, then he helped him win a playoff game. And everywhere Greg's been, people like him in the NFL world is just devastated. He got hit. He never regained consciousness. They did an investigation. No drugs or alcohol, but they're still investigating. And I hope the person that hit him wasn't on their cell phone.
Yeah, it's some reports there. When I think of Greg Knapp, the memory that comes to mind is I've always wondered what he was really thinking when T.O. was going off on him on the sideline and what he really wanted to say. To think to myself, even younger, thinking, boy, that is a lot of restraint for that man to sit there and just let that nut go off on him the way he was.
That's the thing about Knapp, though. He wasn't that type of dude to be confrontational. He just didn't have that in him. Like, everything about Knapp was he knew his job, he knew what he was doing, and he was able to relate and get along with any and everybody, all different types of people. When you talk about an NFL locker room, there's a lot of people coming from a lot of different places and different backgrounds. But everybody was fond of Knapp as a person and as a coach because, first and foremost, as a coach, do you know what you're talking about? Do you know what you're doing? Can you help me become a better player? He had all those things going for him. And then in addition to that, he was able to relate to any and everybody and was able to have, good conversations, meaningful conversations with anybody and everybody on the team. And so when I saw that situation, I was like, T.O. might be picking a fight with somebody, but he's not going to get one from Napper because Napper's not tripping off of whatever T.O.'s saying right now.
All right, I know I've heard you on earlier this week, John, and camp is starting, as we're calling it, Camp Caserio, starting next week. And you said that potentially a lot of national media could be here for the Deshaun situation. What for you would be your prediction? What do you think is going to happen with the league, with this situation, before, I guess, the players can report on the 27th?
They report on Tuesday. They start practicing Wednesday. I wrote a column about this Sunday about, Watson has not been there in the offseason. He said he would never show up. He wants to be traded. So why would he show up now. The only reason he would be to avoid a $50,000 fine every single day that he was out. And those tend to add up. Plus, they could go for signing bonus money. There's a lot of things they could do. If the commissioner put him on the exempt list, and if he were going to do that till his investigation concluded, I don't know why he needs to go to the last minute. What I think will happen is just my opinion. They could put him on the reserve, did not report list, and make all of his absences excused and not fine him the $50,000 a day. He could stay in Georgia, work out on his own as he's been doing, and they could go about their business. And then when the legal issues are resolved, trade him, whether that would be during camp, start of the season, November 2nd trade deadline, or next year's draft. But as long as he's here, it's going to be a distraction. And teams don't want distraction, especially when they're just starting over with new coaches and 50 new players. So they'd trade him yesterday if a team made him a good offer. But why would a team make a good offer to take a guy off their hands with so many issues? Maybe somebody says, hey, we'll give you a 3. That could be a 2. Well, Nick Caserio's not going to do that, I don't think.
He better not. John, I got a question because Josina Anderson said this, I think it was late yesterday. She mentioned as far as the Deshaun Watson case, it's her understanding based on conversations is that the league is still in fact-finding and monitor mode. The source also points out that previous prominent cases involving players to be put on the exempt list were subject to the conduct policy, and league action was accelerated around those seeking to remain with their current team. And she's told that given the league settlement that Deshaun Watson wants to not be there isn't a need to do anything too early. So do you think that there's how legitimate of a situation do you think that is, that she's basically saying the NFL is not going to move on the Deshaun Watson case because he doesn't want to be with the franchise, as opposed to in times in the past there were players that wanted to play for their team, and so the team needed to get something from the NFL in order to conduct business. Why would that be different, and do you believe that is actually the case that we're seeing here and the reason that's why the delay from the NFL to make a decision on Deshaun Watson?
No, absolutely not. I don't buy into that. And the reason is Roger Goodell has under the personal conduct policy, the first thing, the number one thing on there says if you've had a legal action filed against you, he's not. The second one is if Goodell thinks based on the conduct policy you have violated it, and if he reads the lawsuits, he would think he'd violated it, even though Watson is innocent, still proven guilty. But I think Watson, the exempt list is paid leave, and he doesn't get his contract till the season starts. His base salary of $10.5 million. This year you're paid over 30-something weeks and not 17, so he wouldn't lose as much if he's losing game checks, not as in the past. So there's no rush because he's not getting that base salary now. I think if Goodell's going to do it, he'll do it closer to the regular season. But, they don't want him over there. He doesn't want to be over there. And that's why I think that the best thing to do would be to work out some kind of agreement with his people to him to stay away and not get fined.
I just want to make sure I'm getting this from you. Your thought is that since they haven't put him on the commissioner's exempt list at this point, you don't see this being a rush to do it prior to the 27th.
Because that is a paid leave, and right now you're not making your base salary. Now, they could do it because Goodell can do whatever he wants. He's got a lot of latitude based on the wording of the personal conduct policy, which I read again yesterday. Brian Smith wrote a column yesterday or the day before in the Chronicle about the league stance, and right now it's almost like the league's waiting to see what the Texans do in case Watson tries to show up. And there are a few national media people coming in here, and I'm thinking, okay, they're not coming in to cover a team that everybody thinks is going to be the worst in the NFL. They're coming here to see if Watson shows up, and if he doesn't, what are they going to do, turn around and leave? Or say, hey, Terod, do you have a minute?
Yeah, I'm curious from you though. You speak and talk to a lot of Texans fans. I know through your mailbag and through social media and everything. What is the gist that you're getting from Texans fans on how they're feeling about this Deshaun situation?
Well, for the longest time early on, when he wanted to be traded, they were all against the Texans because the Texans made him feel that way. And he didn't like the power Jack Easterby was getting. He told us that after the season he wanted out. He told him he's not coming back, and they thought that they might be able to talk him into it. And then when David Culley met with him, I think in February, and Watson explained it to him again, that's when he came back, talked to Nick Caserio, and they made the decision to trade him. And, of course, then the lawsuits kept piling up. But I think now I don't know any fans that I know that think he's going to be back. And a lot of them are like me. They just want to get it over with. And because they're tired of talking and they want to move on. But I don't think anything is imminent because if they were going to do anything before the start of camp, I think they would have already done it. So now I'm waiting to see, does he go on a list or does he get fined $50,000 a day for every day he misses a training camp?
John, you mentioned that the Texans could potentially give him an excused absence and not fine him that $50,000 a day and just say, stay away, we're going to go operate and do our business. What do you say to the fan base that would say, well, why are they rewarding someone that doesn't want to be part of the organization, somebody that has all these lawsuits against them? What would you say to them when you say, why are you rewarding a guy that's doing that by not fining him? You should go ahead and fine him and get everything out of him that you can because he doesn't no longer want to be here.
Keep him from showing up and creating a circus-like atmosphere because he's never going to play here again. He's not going to be on the practice field again. Another thing, he could show up and getting out of the car, he could develop a back injury and could put him on IR for the year and he'd get paid. There's several things they can do, but until the time gets there, I don't know. I know what the options are, but I have no clue what's going to happen.
John McClain with us the entire 4 o'clock hour, as he is each and every Friday. Camp Caserio coming up Tuesday, starting the 27th. The players can report, and then they'll be on the field. We'll be out there. Exclusive interviews with Nick Caserio regularly, and we are the only media outlet talking to Nick Caserio and the players right as they come off the field each and every day. So make sure you're with us all throughout Camp Caserio. Coming up, the NFL, as we've said, use their latest chess move in terms of COVID and the vaccines. And a former Houston Texan coach seems to be maybe one of the first people to pay the price on that. We'll get John McClain's thoughts on that coming up next.
Sports Radio 610 presents Clint Sterner and the Show.
Clint Sterner out today. Wade Smith is in the building for him. And as well, we are joined by John McClain, presented by Horn Solutions, as always, in the 4 o'clock hour. So first, I want to get your thoughts. What do you think about the NFL and the chess move they made and how they're handling vaccines, saying, hey, if you aren't vaccinated and you potentially cause an outbreak, not only will your team be potentially forfeit games or a game, you could lose a game check, your team could lose a game check, and the team you're scheduled to play could lose a game check. That is a real big chess move from the NFL.
And the union is fully supportive because the league and the union know you've got to be an ignoramus to not get a vaccine, because not only can it hurt you, it can hurt your teammates, your fans, your organization. The fans pay your salary. I wish they could dock them pay or not pay them at all if they're too big of numbskulls to not get vaccinations. And as someone that got mine immediately, and I don't know if they're scared of needles or they're just ignorant or stubborn or a combination, all of the above. And Rick Dennison, who coached here with Greg Knapp, I can't imagine. Rick may never work in the NFL again because he won't get two shots. I just don't understand it. And he's fired. They can, and I'll tell you what, Wade, if you and Ron played the same, say you played guard, and when it came to making a cut, it was a tough decision, but Ron got his vaccinations and you didn't, you're out of here. We'd never say, hey, it's because you didn't get your vaccinations. So you're trying to get on with another team and you don't get your vaccinations, you ain't getting on with another team. So probably after you were cut the first time and you went home, your wife said, you get your butt down to the doctor right now. And there's going to be a lot of guys get it. I just don't understand it. What you have to go through with all those protocols, it just doesn't seem worth it. Not to mean you could cost your team a game. It's one thing if it's baseball when you play so many games, but in the NFL, when you're playing 17 and every one could have meaning on the playoff race, home field advantage, I wouldn't want to be a player who, say, Cole Beasley, who's been the poster boy for not getting vaccinations, if all of a sudden he tested positive or somebody else he was around did and he got quarantined and they need to win a game to go to host the AFC Championship game, and they lost it by 3 points, and they could say, well, Cole, he would have caught the ball down there in the red zone. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, there's a lot of people that would say and would agree with your sentiment, but there's a significant amount of people that say disagree. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. I don't want to get a shot, something that has just been created very recently. There's a lot of people that really believe that. So there is sentiment and there's support from players, from coaches. You're seeing Rico getting fired because of it, from fans that say no. I support their line of thinking. And so I would just say that everybody that is against it or for the vaccine, make sure you holler at your doctor first. You got a family doctor, you have a personal doctor, talk to them about it, see what they say. If you don't trust your doctor to give you a legitimate opinion on what you should or should not do, then maybe you need a different doctor. But I think a lot of people that have their thoughts on this one way or the other, that they're not necessarily going that route to figure out what they're going to do. That's the only thing I would say. I understand what the NFL is doing here, and it's very smart. It's pitting, like you mentioned, a middle-of-the-road guy is not going to risk their career over this particular thing. And the ones that do risk it will be gone, and you'll never hear of them again.
He's not risking it.
He's not. There's no way in hell that it's going to happen. And so the way that this policy was set up, the NFL is going to get what they want. Period. There's going to be a handful of people that will be against it, and people will support them and stand against whatever it may be, but they won't be part of the NFL going forward, and that's unfortunate for them. But the NFL is not going to let anyone affect their bottom line. And you telling me that a franchise would have to pay revenues to another franchise if their team causes a forfeit because of unvaccinated players? They are going to get rid of those type of players on their team. They just are, because it's bad business to keep them on the roster. The only players that will really have an opportunity to stay unvaccinated and not have any issues from their team are superstars. You're hearing DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey and various people say things to that effect of, hey, they don't know about the shots. And I understand people might not be fans of getting vaccinated. That part is what it is. But those guys don't have to worry about getting cut because of it. The majority of the guys, and some people are saying just bubble guys, I'm talking about 75, 85% of the roster. If you're not vaccinated, that's going to be a black mark against you on the ledger, and that's going to be held against you. And so because of that, guys are going to fall in line and get the shots if they were on the fence. Now, I think the majority of guys were willing to get it anyway. So it's a moot point to a lot of people, but the ones that are against it or on the fence, this policy is going to make them get in line, and so all of the teams are going to end up in compliance very, very quickly.
You mentioned Hopkins. It's not going to cost him his job, but man, he could cost his team a win or two. He could certainly do that. Comes down to the end, they're trying to make the playoffs. He's not playing because he didn't get vaccinated. That means you're hurting your team. I love what Zeke Elliott did. I don't believe in vaccinations. I come from a family that doesn't believe in vaccinations, and I respect that. Don't understand it, but I respect it. But he got the shots because he didn't want to hurt his team. And there's a lot of guys, I'm sure. I have read some explanations from some nincompoops, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? It's created in the lab. Well, of course it's created in the lab. And then the one guy was ripping Fauci and saying he was a part of this, and I'm thinking, man, how do you get through life? The NFLPA has it right there for all the players, and they've told players, do not use misinformation as an excuse. It's right here, anything you want. So guys now acting surprised about it is just ridiculous. It's been going on forever, and I'm glad the league and the union have done this, and fans should be too, because if your favorite players are not playing and your team's losing because they wouldn't get vaccinated, it's just unbelievable. When I was in elementary school, polio was big. They made us get polio vaccines. If back then we could have done this, I thank God my parents would have made me do it, because a bunch of people would have been getting polio. I knew one girl I went to school with back then. She didn't get them, and she was in a wheelchair as long as I knew her because she did polio. But now, these people are. I hope nobody gets sick and dies. But I read a thing today that people 20 to 30 something are the highest age group because they go out more now than older people like me. But I can't wait to see how this all plays out. It is a competitive disadvantage if you don't get vaccinated.
John McClain, presented by Horn Solutions, with us. John, from the other side, because I think there are some people who will hear and as Wade said, completely disagree with your state and the thought of, all right, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, game and wins, but this potentially for them is bigger than a game or wins. Do you feel, though, in this case, the NFL has maybe gone a little too far or stepped across the line in terms of the decisions they're making?
Because they know if you get your vaccinations, even if you get sick, you're not going to die. And if you get your vaccinations, you're not going to keep your team from winning a game or having a bunch of guys be quarantined. And I'd like to know, like Cole Beasley said, he was going to work out really hard and get in the best possible shape to keep him from getting COVID-19. I'm like, that's got nothing to do with getting a disease, and it might help you fight it if you get it. But I just like people to say exactly why it is and who they're believing to makes them not do it. And if they don't care about the ramifications and being at a competitive disadvantage when you're in the league to do everything you can to win.
I think that's one of the biggest factors of it is the NFL is saying if you get vaccinated and you still catch COVID, there's not going to be consequences because you did everything you could to prevent it from happening. The big thing, and the reason why the NFL is trying to do it and get people vaccinated is because they want full crowds. They want people to be able to have butts in seats. And you're seeing that there's being more outbreaks now. And the large majority of people that are being hospitalized these days are ones that are unvaccinated. And so you see when people start talking about, hey, potentially shutting down again, we all remember what it was like. That's a driving factor where people will say, no, you need to go ahead and get your shots. Once again, you can still play in the NFL if you do not get vaccinated. It's just going to be very, very difficult for you to do so. Their consequences are higher. Your daily ritual that you have to go through is going to be more strenuous and uncomfortable. But if you really believe what you believe, you'll still be able to play in the NFL if you're a player because you're a contractor. If you're an employee like Rico Dennison, like the offensive line coach Popovich from the Patriots, they can let you go. And those guys have got fired because of it. Because, like I said, the NFL is not going to allow anybody to affect this bottom line, period. And if you have to have capacity limits, they got all these TV contracts set up and all these money that they're expected to get from day in, game out. If you're telling me that we have to reschedule a game or we have to cancel a game, I'm going to tax somebody. And so this is what this is. The bottom line is come down to money. Now, in this case, there's a lot of people that say this is also a health issue and it's helping people and it's helping save lives. That's why I said this was a chess move by the NFL, and they're going to get what they want.
And the union. The union, I've never seen the NFLPA and the NFL on the same page as much as they are. Wade, I don't know. How many drugs do you put in your body while you played? I'm guessing quite a few.
Oh, there was a lot of vitamins. You see,
vitamins, painkillers.
It's two different arguments here because the same thing. There's a group of people that would talk about what's going on politically with kneeling and all that type of stuff that believed, you know what? I believe in what the players are doing, but I understand the sentiment of the league being against them doing it. It's the same thing with this vaccine where there's people that say, I believe in players saying I don't want to get the shots, but I understand what the NFL is doing because it's business. if you're a businessman, you understand business. When you start talking about political things and you talk about emotions and all that involved, all that business stuff goes out the window, no matter what topic that we're talking about. And so, and I understand, I have empathy, I understand how people feel, but at the end of the day, the bottom line always will be the NFL is going to make sure that their bottom line is on point, and that's what you're seeing in this case.
And the NFLPA.
John McClain, he's with us in the entire 4 o'clock hour. Dear John, coming up at 4:45, texting your questions for the Hall of Famer. Coming up, we'll see if this will affect the Texans at all. This new rule will affect the Texans at all, any fear of that, and we'll get what his thoughts were with this OU and Texas situation potentially going to the SEC. That's next.
Sports Radio 610 presents Clint Sterner and the Show.
Dear John, coming up in about 10 minutes, John McClain, presented by Horn Solutions, joins us. Wade Smith is in the building. Real quick, one more thing on the COVID vaccine situation. In terms of the Texans, do you think this is a team that potentially could be affected in terms of having issues with players? I know in Buffalo they have a couple of players that have been speaking out. It sounds like the Arizona Cardinals have DeAndre Hopkins, who may be up in the air, said he's thinking about his future. Do you get any sense that this could be a problem for the Texans?
Well, if you have 85%, that means you got 15% of your players who don't do it. Every team's got that, because unless, I think Andy Reid, didn't he say Chiefs had reached 90%? One coach did, and the staffers 100%. So if you have any players, even if you've passed the 85% threshold, you still got to worry about it, whether they're a key player or they are not. And in a perfect world, everybody would have the vaccinations, and this wouldn't be an issue. But any team can be affected if you have one guy who hasn't been vaccinated.
All right, John McClain with us, Wade Smith as well. This has been real tough for our buddy Tyler, who is a Texas A&M Aggie. He struggled all week with this and not being honest and realistic with himself about the fact that
it's not
this
true.
Is, this is going to happen.
The Aggies
it's going to
fought
happen.
it like crazy. It's going to happen. They didn't tell A&M. They've been talking about it for months.
Can you believe that, John?
I can't believe A&M. Well, they're Aggies. And so,
wait, what does that mean? What does that mean?
That they're Aggies? Or
yeah, what does that?
You're not
what does
born,
that mean?
Yeah, you're from Texas.
I'm from the great state of Texas now.
You ought to know that.
Hell, I know.
But what do you mean? But I need
If
some
you say
elaboration
they're
on
Aggies,
it. What does
just
that
sums
mean?
it up.
Tyler is Steven.
I don't know. I don't have any affiliations with
Tyler
any Texas
knows
schools.
that.
So
I need more
sources.
sources on that, John.
I need you
So,
to elaborate what that means.
A&M does not want Texas over there. They've been outspoken about it. Jerome Solomon of the Chronicle wrote a column today about the Longhorns that always look down their noses at the SEC because they are the elitist T-sips, and that's T-sips like the British T-sippers who drink with their little finger in the air. I've known that since I was a child. And so now they're reaching out because they see at least $60 million a year in TV money, maybe more. And so the Longhorns, who already have more money than Fort Knox, I'm sure they're going to go to the poorhouse. And the thing is, they can't win they can't win the Big 12. How in the world are they going to win the SEC or even the West? Even though the Aggies have been really good, they still haven't won the West. And I know Arkansas, since Arkansas left the SWC, what's Arkansas done in football?
This kind of stuff chaps my hide, man.
Oklahoma will win in football because they are perennial power. And the Longhorns have not been a perennial power for decades. And going to the SEC will help them make money, but they're not going to be a power for sure. And I've told my friends, I've done a bunch of talk shows with SEC cities. You don't know what you're getting when you let the University of Texas in your door, because they want to run everything.
Yeah, but they're not going to be able to do that in the
No,
SEC.
that's what everybody over there says, we're the SEC, the Longhorns aren't going to tell us what to do. I said, Longhorns tell everybody what to do. Growing up in Texas, I learned at an early age, I've used this as an example all week, we all know, and that would be the Aggies, the Bears, the Red Raiders, everybody knows. One school drives that bus, and the rest of us get on, take a seat, and go wherever they want to take us, and that's the way it is. Nebraska left because of the Longhorns. A&M left because of the Longhorns. I don't know Colorado.
You can throw Missouri in there.
And in Missouri and Colorado, of course. Has anybody ever heard anything from them since they left? But if you can't win big in the Big 12, how in the world are you going to win big in SEC? And one friend said, "Hey, we got Sarkisian." I said, "Yeah," and they're probably already looking for the next coach because they change them every 3 years.
Now, hold on. Now Texas is. See, I had this argument with Tyler yesterday.
You are spot on, John.
I had this. Oh boy, you're really flipping, aren't you? I had this argument with him yesterday. Texas is still a program much like Alabama and Michigan and Ohio State, where if they get the right person in there,
a lot of ifs.
No, just one. If they get the right person in there, they'll win. Like Alabama had Mike Shula and Mike Price and all those weird coaches, and then Nick Saban came, bam, Alabama is Alabama
again.
And so Texas can be that if they find the right, like he said yesterday, Tyler was asinine and said he could never see Texas when they join the SEC getting to the Vince Young years again.
No, you're taking what I said out of context.
That's exactly what you said.
You know what I said. I said that it will never be the same as it was when they dominated the Big 12. That will never happen again.
That's been so long ago. I was a child.
Okay, even that statement. Texas is Texas in the best state in the country to recruit in. Now they have an even playing field with A&M, can sell the same thing. We're in the best conference in America. They most certainly can get to that level again, especially if they get the right coach.
You can tell you're not from Texas.
So now this
Longhorns have been. You're right. If they were to get the right coach,
yes.
but they keep failing over and over.
And I don't think they have the right one right now.
Whether they have the right coach, and maybe it's Sark, maybe it's not. So. But you could say that about a lot of programs. But the fact is, the University of Texas, in a great city, a great school that raises more money than anybody, bigger budgets, it is absolutely ridiculous that they are not a top 5 program every year like Clemson,
I agree.
Alabama, and Ohio State. And the people that have made those decisions through the years ought to be embarrassed that they're not a top 5 program every year. And now that they're going to the SEC, they'll be lucky to be a top 10. I saw a great stat I retweeted yesterday, going back to 2010. Weeks in the top 10, Baylor was 40-something, Texas like 12. And then A&M, of course, was way up there. But, more power to them. Doesn't surprise me at all. I've always worried about being a Baylor grad that there would be a super conference and Baylor would be left out. What I'm more interested in right now, who are they going to get to take their place? BYU, Cincinnati. They're going to try to get Arizona State. Pac-12 is not. Pac-12 used to be a big deal. Not anymore. It's right now, it's the SEC and the Big Ten.
But see, John, do you believe that the Big 12 will continue to go on, or will there be teams looking for a way out, and then the Big 12 will be no more? Because there is, I think there's a logical progression where you would say that there's going to be teams within the Big 12 with the fact that you lose Texas and OU, that the conference is no longer viable, and so they're going to try to connect with the Big 10 or with the Pac-12, an ACC, and then the Big 12 no longer exists. And where does Baylor fall? Because you're a Baylor grad, a Baylor through and through. Where do they end up when everything shakes out?
Yeah, well, I think the Big 12 will continue. It won't be as strong, of course. It won't be a Power 5. It might be a Power 6, 5.5. But if they got BYU or Cincinnati, of course they're not Oklahoma, Texas, but I don't see teams coming in going, wow, I got to get Baylor or Texas Tech. I think U of H, the reason U of H is not in the Big 12, Longhorns kept them out because they didn't want them to be in and start recruiting more here, which is a Longhorn hot spot for recruiting. But they couldn't do that anymore. I'd love to have U of H in, Cincinnati, BYU, and one more, and just go off that. You wouldn't make as much. The ACC has a terrible TV contract from ESPN that makes less than everybody else, and they're talking about why in the world would ESPN redo that contract and give them more money, because they have that contract to like the 30s. And so I thought it was really interesting, the former Aggie president telling people they had a gentleman's agreement in SEC that you would not bring in a school that was in your state without you signing off on it. But obviously they're not gentlemen.
No, they had to make a move. This is the portion of the show where we piss off Tyler, and
they might make a move.
It's
not for certain.
Tyler, just give it up. It's happening.
They're gone, Tyler.
Done. Out of here.
Before we get started, though, to the Dear John, one thing that people are not talking about with the SEC is Nick Saban's not going to be the head coach forever. And so y'all talk about Texas not ever regaining any prominence or anything like that. Like, once Nick Saban departs, there's going to be a power vacuum where all those recruits end up going. And so there is going to be opportunities for other teams within the SEC to become the big dogs. And so that part of it, which is going to happen in the next 5 years or so, which coincides with when these moves are going to take place. Texas knows what the hell they're doing with making this move, and you got to respect it.
What about bringing Dabo back home?
You could see
that's always been the reports.
And when you get to the power conference and get Saban out of there, you can completely see that. God, boy, just making Tyler mad even more.
You can go to Alabama and make $1 million without ever playing.
Dear John,
lose to Iowa State, move to the SEC. Makes sense.
Really good. Let's kick off the weekend by asking the most respected Houston sports writer of all time anything you want. Submit your questions to the text line 713-572-4610. Include hashtag Dear John along with name and city. And for today's Dear John, let's open up the mailbag.
All right, John. Devin in Stafford says, Dear John, who is the one defensive player that you believe will be affected the most changing into Lovie Smith's defense?
Well, the one I think who's going to be the most improved is Charles Omenihu. Charles, last year, based on the snaps, had a lot of quarterback hits. I think if he plays more, he's big for a 4-3 defensive end, so I think he'll play more time at tackle. I would make sure he played in passing situations, but I would start him at end and move him inside. And I think if he gets the snaps, he will be the most improved player in the defensive line.
My thought is I'm hoping it's Zach Cunningham in this defense where linebackers have been like – I'm trying not to. You compare when you think about these defenses, and God, can he play in the role of Derek Brooks? Is that what you would hope that Zach Cunningham – this is my thought. I said this earlier this week. I was watching Devin Booker in the finals, and I'm like, does Zach Cunningham have that step to take? Because Zach Cunningham has been a numbers compiler, put up a lot of stats, but how much has it really affected, making others around him better in the defense? Can he take a step this year to where his production actually matches how good the defense is? He could lead the league in tackles, but they got the worst rushing defense in the league next year. I would hope it's Zach Cunningham that his production starts to actually
see, I wouldn't put him in there since he led the league in tackles. I'm looking for a guy to take the next step who has not done it yet.
Well, you mentioned Zach Cunningham. Like, his stats early on in his career were significant stats. Like, this past year, the run defense was terrible. But before then, they weren't terrible stopping the run. It coincided with the departure of DJ Reader. That's when they forgot how to stop the run. They didn't have the personnel to do it around him. But although Zach Cunningham compiled some stats last year, I think he's been making significant plays since he's been on the roster. And so I wouldn't put him in that category of a guy that's just compiling stats. Last year was last year. They let too many good players go, and he had to compile stats because there was nobody else to make plays.
I think there's another
if you weren't
getting
a lot of tackles last year, you weren't on the field the way you're getting steamrolled by running backs.
God.
I mean, it was bad. It was bad. You can't be mad at John. It was poor.
He really has
it was really poor.
Yeah,
no question
it's not
about
good.
All right, let's go to Friendswood. Stanley and Friendswood. How will the passing game look this year compared to what we've seen in years past, John?
Well, Stanley, it's not going to be anywhere near as good. You got Tyrod Taylor or Jeff Driscoll or Davis Mills replacing Deshaun Watson, who's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. Plus, they're going to have a goal of running the ball a lot more, having more balance. So stats from like Brandon Cooks, instead of having 81 for over 1,100 yards, might have 60 for 800, and people go, oh, my God, he sure fell off, and it might not have anything to do with him.
And Wade, you could probably answer to this, is it's just going to, just the parts of the field they used to attack will probably be very different. This was a down the field, deep crossers, over the top. It feels like now with Tyrod Taylor, you may see running backs used more in the passing game. Maybe tight ends. Maybe Randall Cobb will look better because that seems to be the area of the field that it will just look visually different because they're going to attack different areas.
For sure. It's definitely not going to be as explosive. They're going to utilize tight ends and running backs more. They're going to take a lot more safe passes. That's Tyrod Taylor's. That's the way he operates. He's not going to throw the ball away. He's not going to throw the ball to the other team. He's going to get the ball to his skill position players that are running backs and tight ends in short passes, and that's what you're going to see. And it's gonna coincide with their run game. And so hopefully they can get some consistency out of the run game so that it can kind of mitigate the loss of what they can do downfield and what they had with Deshaun Watson and Will Fuller. But, yeah, it's definitely not going to be as exciting, definitely not going to be down the field plays and a lot of the Houdini stuff that you saw out of Deshaun Watson over the past few years.
All right, let's switch gears here and talk some baseball. John, Mark in North Houston. Dear John, do the Astros need to make a move before the trade deadline, or will they be okay with what they got?
You just said, Mark, okay is not good enough. You want to win your division, you can win it with the group you have now. You want to get to the World Series, you better be better than okay. Anybody that's seen this bullpen all season knows they need help. If I'm another team and I'm going to trade them a reliever, I want Chas McCormick. I tell James Click, I want McCormick. What could that guy do if he played every play and got every at-bat based on what he's done, 10 home runs, and I think 32 or 33 RBIs? I would not give up one of those young starting pitchers, but they've got to get help for the pen. If they rely on these guys who've been coming back from injuries, I think that's a mistake.
I am going to crush them if they don't make a move. If they sit here before the deadline on the 30th, I am going to come in here and crush them. But I don't believe James Click is going to do that.
I don't either.
I don't believe that at all. All right, John, we always enjoy when you come in, and it's good to see your pretty little face here today. John McClain, the Hall of Famer, is in with us. And have a good weekend and stay safe.
Hey, guys, I hope you have a great weekend too. Tyler, thank you very much as always, and I'll see you guys next week.
Baylor will be the best team in the Mountain West coming up in the next couple of years, and I know John will be so excited for that. All right, coming up, the Astros, the lineups are out as they come back from a day off, and as John said, man, they need help and they need to get something here, but we'll see how they kick off this series against the Rangers. We'll discuss that and give you the lineups coming up next.
The ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz are some of the most iconic objects in Hollywood history, and in the summer of 2005, a pair was stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in the small town of Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
All she said was, "They're gone. They're gone."
Welcome to No Place Like Home, a documentary podcast series that investigates the mysterious heist of the ruby slippers. Please listen and follow No Place Like Home, a presentation of C13 Originals, a Cadence 13 studio, available now on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.